is in crisis. With the region's hospitals constantly jam-packed with patients, ambulance drivers say their vehicles are becoming mobile hospital beds.
If someone's sick and injured, then they should be seen at a hospital, not ferried around to try and find the most appropriate hospital or the only hospital that will take them.
On Monday night, officers were forced to transport a 10-year-old girl suffering second-degree burns between Maitland, John Hunter and Singleton Hospital before she was finally treated. They say unless more resources are injected into the Hunters' health system, this sort of thing could become commonplace.
We haven't even started the winter problems. Now, once that winter problem comes in with people with coughs and colds, then I believe this position is going to be exacerbated.
However, the Hunter New England Area Health Service says this latest incident only arose because officers didn't take the girl to Singleton Hospital in the first place.
This is not an issue of resources. This is an issue about our systems and processes being followed.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The gates were locked and workers were ordered off this Shortland construction site. Even those returning to pick up tools weren't allowed back inside. Estate Constructions, which is associated with the troubled Estate Property Group, is behind the $14 million Kingfisher Grove Eco Village. But work has now stalled on the 42 villas, while construction at a Pecolban site has also been halted. Estate Property Group's financial problems leaving many out of pocket.
We believe there'd be about 15 subcontractors at this stage with possibly up to 100 employees, and so the big problem for them is getting paid.
The Master Builders Association says subcontractors are owed up to $100,000 each, the total debt well into the millions.
I would say at this stage it's probably in the order of 3 or 4 million, but that will take a little bit of time to be sorted out by the administrator. They'll go through the accounts and we'll have a clearer idea as to how much is owing locally.
It's the latest in a string of development company collapses affecting the Hunter, including the Bay Building Group. But Len Blakeney believes the Hunter's building industry is in good shape. He says the problem can be developers overestimating expected returns.
And I think it's very much the way the amount of finance that they've raised and the very high rates that they've paid for that. We know that it's probably 4 and 5% above the going bank rate. Very difficult for them to make a decent return.
It's believed at least 15 of the Shortland villas have been sold. Estate Constructions refused to comment when contacted today. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's almost 2 years since Port Stephens Pearls was granted Land and Environment Court approval to develop a pearl farm between Corlett and Wanda Head. While the company is completing work on approval conditions for the development, including monitoring of dolphin movements through the area, Port Stephens Pearls is talking with oyster producers about potential business opportunities. Among those considering a proposal to grow out seed pearls for the company are Tilligreed Creek oyster farmers whose businesses have been battling for survival since July 2005 when sewage contaminated the waterway. Some are currently undertaking trials to assess whether the venture, which involves a 2-year growing out process, would be viable. The option comes with the oyster farmers soon to receive a vital report on the health of the creek. It's expected to determine what areas are fit for oyster production to resume, but could also sound the death knell for oyster farming in other parts of the waterway. Port Stephens Pearls says the build-up to full production is progressing, with the results of a just-completed seeding program to be known later this year. Gary Blair, NBN News.
They came through the club at the same time and have played all their senior football together. Now Josh Perry and Adam Woolnough are both leaving. This afternoon, Woolnough spoke to NBN's Jim Callanan about his decision.
Right, Adam, we're heading to Penrith for the next 3 years, mate. Obviously happy the decision's made and that you're going to a club.
Yeah, definitely. It's a decision I'm really happy with, but to have an opportunity to go to another club, and a really strong one at that, and to be wanted down there is it was just an easy decision in the end.
You are definitely seeing out the year, and you want to make sure you finish it strongly.
Yeah, that's right. Clint's done his own way, and that was his decision. But I am sticking strong with the club. I've indicated that to Brian and to Crowie that there's no two ways about it, that I'm staying at the club for the rest of the year, but just not that I'm going to put in 110% as well. A
lot's been said in the last 24, 48 hours. Players have been leaving. Is it a club in crisis?
I don't believe it's a club in crisis. Other people might outside the club, but they're not actually in the inner sanctum of the team. And the boys have got 100% confidence in who's coming in, and to Luke McDougall coming in, the boys are behind him 100%.
Yeah, at the end of the day, do you hold any animosity for how it's all played out and the fact that you do have to leave?
I've got no animosity towards the club at all. They've been great to me for 10 years, and I've enjoyed my time, made a lot of friends that are here still and that have gone previously. So, no, it's a good club, but just a challenge to get to Penrith next year.
In all, Newcastle has 9 players off contract and seemingly unwanted for next season, but the club has promised a massive buying spree in the coming weeks.
With only 7 of last year's World Cup squad named, there will be some new faces desperate to shine during the Socceroos international clash. Nick Carl's waited patiently in the wings for years, but doesn't think he would have been handed this golden opportunity if the squad was at full strength.
Although it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant what they've done for the league and the country here, and football's got so much better here. I do feel we need to be playing more games if you want to be a serious contender for the national side.
He says overseas-based players have the huge advantage of playing 35 to 40 games a season rather than the 21-round A-League in Australia.
Only playing for 5-6 months, there's a massive difference in keeping up the intensity over a full year and having a month off rather than having 5-6 months off,
With 4 years remaining on his contract with the Jets, any offer he receives during the upcoming European transfer window would have to be pretty lucrative if the club's to consider selling him. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
Frenchman Thomas Caville already has a list of sailing achievements almost as long as his new boat. The 32-metre trimaran was built by Boat Speed on the Central Coast, and the solo sailor has arrived from France to oversee its assembly in Newcastle.
Everything we've done is to make it fast and strong, to go around the world by myself and try to beat the Ellen MacArthur record.
Dame Ellen set the solo, non-stop and unassisted record of 71 days, 14 hours. But Thomas is confident his trimaran will be faster.
For me, multi-hulls are definitely the more exciting way of sailing. It's definitely not fighting against the sea, but more flying.
Across the harbour, Finn Aziz from Malaysia is nearing a $500,000 refit of his monohull using local tradesmen. He aims to become the first solo, non-stop and unassisted sailor from his country to loop the planet.
I'm very, very happy with the job that Nook's done to the boat and all what they set up and they really follow the plan. Yeah, beautiful.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The upper-level offices at the corner of Wharf Road and Argyle Street were evacuated late this morning after a haze was noticed inside the building. A nearby public car park became a temporary emergency ward as ambulance officers treated workers from the Commonwealth Bank and RTA call centres who had been overcome by an unidentified gas. In all, 38 workers, mostly Commonwealth Bank employees, needed medical attention, including asthmatics suffering breathing difficulties, while others reported having an irritated throat. Half of the patients were taken to John Hunter Hospital, with the remainder transferred as far afield as Belmont, Maitland and Curry hospitals. A cracked pipe to a gas compressor above the bank call centre is believed to have sparked the emergency, with the gas described as non-hazardous. It was a case of deja vu for both officers, which were evacuated under similar circumstances in March last year. At this stage, it's not known whether the two incidents are connected. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The CSIRO in Newcastle is already a world leader in research into renewables, especially solar. But Labor says if it wins office, it'll spend an extra $50 million over 4 years on the solar program.
It is about fast-tracking, it is about responding to climate change now and not leaving it till it's too late.
Because the wind doesn't blow all the time and solar panels are useless at night, we need to work out ways of storing power when it's generated. A test solar field at CSIRO's Mayfield site is attempting to store energy from the sun mixed with natural gas. It's one project that Labor wants to see reach its potential.
Turning sunshine into gas, turning sunshine into usable and renewable energy sources, to integrate solar with other energy sources, existing energy sources, and certainly to allow the Energy Centre to increase its massive arrays of mirrors and continue its trial that it's been doing at the Solar Centre already.
Any extra funding, while welcomed by the CSIRO, would be unlikely to create any new jobs, but would safeguard existing positions at the Newcastle site. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A few brief formalities sealed the $16.7 million deal between Hunter Water and Johnson Property Group. The two will now work in tandem to develop a residential recycled water scheme for a new housing subdivision in North Cooranbong.
I believe it's thinking of the big picture, long term, so that the homeowner ends up with cheaper water and environmental friendly water.
The scheme will supply each home with 3 water pipes, one for drinking water, one for recycled water and one to take wastewater away. When complete, all 2,800 homes in the estate will have access to the highly treated recycled water for outdoor use and toilet flushing.
We think a typical home uses about 40% of their water in the garden and for toilet flushing, so we think that's the sort of saving we can get.
And the scheme isn't only environmentally friendly.
It'll also be more reliable because they will not be subject to restrictions in times of drought.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Known as 670 Hunter Street, this is the building widely seen as the development that will give the revival of Newcastle West a healthy kick-along. Level 2 will become best known to many people as the reception area for the Newcastle Community Health Centre, with numerous inner-city outpatient services relocating here.
So for your dental, podiatry, sexual health services, drug and alcohol services, and Parry Street mental health services, as well as the current area at Newcastle East Community Health Centre will be coming over.
Even though fit out of office accommodation and the dental surgery has only begun this week, some patients have already gone to the new centre, even though services don't open for months.
No, the relocation won't commence until August, and we're hoping to be up and running at full speed by September.
And some early advice on parking, it's limited, with patients already being advised to use public transport when they visit the centre. While Hunter New England Health takes up almost half of the building, the rest is in strong demand from other government, national and multinational tenants. A lease is close to settlement for the top floor, another is under negotiation for the 4th level, with the ground floor tenancies about to be put to the market. Gary Blair, NBN News.
When Jared Mullen hit the headlines, named as the New South Wales halfback, these old photos surfaced from the Mullen family albums. And while not much attention was paid to the blonde kid on the right at the time, that's set to change. He's Mullen's longtime mate, Luke Walsh, and in a turn of events, he's now replacing Jared as halfback.
Yeah, they've played a lot of their junior footy together, and he's not there with Jared as a partnership this time round. But I think at some stage soon, that's likely when Jared returns from injury, and if things go well for Walshy, that would be a combination we'd really look forward to seeing.
While he's still a little camera shy, coach Brian Smith spoke for the 20-year-old today, singing Walsh's praises.
He's a local boy, he's done really well, another product from Wests.
And while the Knights have lost 2 players this week, a young prop from St George Illawarra, Danny Wicks, has announced that he'll make Newcastle home for the next 3 seasons.
I'm very excited about what I think he offers our team. He's very quick, he's a big man, he's very strong, he's got an aggressive attitude to his game, and he's got his best footy in front of him. So, that's all spells good things for us.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
I'm hoping to just have a whole new start and be happy again, get back to enjoying footy.
It was resurfaced just a month ago, and while he may be biased, Ross Gigg believes Broadmeadow offers the best track in New South Wales. Over the next 3 Saturday nights, it'll play host to Newcastle's major carnival, known as the Triple Treat, a total of $50,000 in prize money up for grabs.
It's the start of our 3-year-old carnival. We've worked hard on this over the last 5 years to develop the 3-year-old carnival. It kicks off this Saturday night at Newcastle with the Neville stud Newcastle Oaks.
The Maitland-based Second Dollar, trained by Brian Elder, will be the one to beat.
She's a beautiful 3-year-old filly. She won the Tasmanian Oaks a month ago, so we're shooting for 2 Oaks within a space of a month. And she needs to win another $9,000 to break the magical $100,000 prize money mark. If she wins Saturday night, she'll do that.
And she certainly has the local advantage, holding the track record at Broadmeadow for 3-year-olds.
She ran 1:55.9 over a mile, and that's flying.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
She is a dwarf mini, and so she is about 17.5 inches tall, and according to Guinness, she's the smallest horse in history.
Armed with protest placards in English and Chinese, the Hunter coal miners made sure their message was understood loud and clear. Among the crowd, the Austar workers who've been made redundant by the Chinese government despite record coal prices.
World demand for the product is outstripping supply. Who's suffering at the end of the stick? You guys are. You're getting the sack.
What's most frustrating for the workers is that the 79 job cuts aren't due to a downturn in the industry, but relate to an infrastructure issue.
It is quite disheartening to have an industry that's booming and through logistic bottlenecks having people displaced.
The Ostow colliery will now scale back from 7 days a week to weekdays, cutting production and employment because of limits on the amount of coal they can ship from the Port of Newcastle.
There are bottlenecks in the chain. I've spoken to coal companies and they recognise particularly the bottlenecks with the coal loaders and the rail system are impacting on their ability to expand supply.
But the union says coal producers are mostly to blame and believe the workers are paying the consequences of poor planning.
It's the coal owners that have been making billions of dollars profit, record profit. In the last few years, they should have been turning some of that money back into the infrastructure.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The Humpback Highway is in full swing off Port Stephens as the gentle giants head north from Antarctica to the Great Barrier Reef to give birth in warmer waters. Around 7,000 whales will pass our coastline this year and many thousands of people will venture out to see them, clear in their belief that the whales are worth more alive than dead. The official whale watching season got underway today, and the promised Japanese slaughter of humpbacks in the Southern Ocean was on people's minds.
I think it's terrible. I just really can't understand why everybody's letting it happen.
Absolutely atrocious, I think there should be something seriously done about this worldwide.
I mean, they're our whales, and everybody has a right to enjoy them, so I think that the world needs to take a bigger stand against it.
Whale watching generates around $10 million a year in Port Stephens, and from this Sunday there'll be regular whale cruises out of Newcastle Harbour from the Lee Wharf pontoon at 10 o'clock. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
If you think these pictures tell the story, they don't. They only tell half, as bare paddocks lead to bare pantries.
People don't really talk about these things a lot in the West, and you will find that it's the ones who really need assistance who won't ask.
And they don't need to. Pauline Hunt turns up anyway. Backed by the Country Women's Association, 2 Singleton branch members will leave for the state's far west next Wednesday. Among the items they'll take with them are shampoo and moisturiser.
We just take in those little things that are put to the bottom of the list that people can't afford, like shaving cream and a packet of razor blades and tube of toothpaste.
Footy boots, toilet paper, clothes, even food have also been donated through CWA branches and Centrelink offices from community groups, big business and individuals.
$2,500 worth of tea tree oil products were given by a very generous community member.
If there's one thing the ladies need most, it's more storage. This is the 3rd such charity drive since Christmas. The CWA started with a ute. Now it's a 6-tonne truck.
Maybe we'll need a semi next time. Or a road train.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The lure of seeing only Australian films on the big screen at the oldest continuously running cinema in the country was enough to attract industry interest. 200 homegrown filmmakers heading to the small rural town of Dungog for the 4-day film festival. Amidst the prominent actors and directors, it was this 10-year-old local who was the star. Acclaimed film critic Margaret Pomeranz was among those to give the festival 5 stars.
Australian films have a special resonance for me because they're reflecting the language I know, the landscape, the lifestyle. They're Australian stories.
Well, I suppose a festival of just Australian films is pretty unique.
Bruce Beresford has directed 13 Australian-made films, his last one, Paradise Road, in 1995. Like many, the 2-time Oscar nominee has headed overseas to find success, making 10 films in America, including Double Jeopardy and Driving Miss Daisy. Beresford says there aren't enough opportunities for Australian filmmakers.
Because it's easier for me to set up films in America and in Europe than it is here.
Claire McCarthy, whose short film Skin opened the festival, is among the next generation of filmmakers also looking to make inroads overseas. That trend has prompted calls for audiences to embrace Australian talent.
We can't get the same names on board, but it doesn't mean we can't tell the same quality of stories.
And as for just what makes a successful film?
Luck.
Certainly not something that is ever easy or something that you're ever going to do overnight.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
Mitchell Sargent has been forced to take the long way round in his return to first-grade football. After his highly publicised sacking from the Cowboys last year for drug use, injury and form combined to halt his progress at Newcastle this year. But tomorrow is his chance.
Definitely exciting. Just obviously a new team and just to win all the fans and that back, which I sort of maybe lost last year.
Although not hiding from the past, the powerful forward is keen to focus on the future.
Yeah, it was a bad way to finish last year, so definitely that's all behind me now, and then if I play some good footy, that's all I'm thinking about.
Luke McDougall will be relying on big brother Adam tomorrow for some direction in his club debut after only arriving midweek. The pair will play alongside each other, with the younger sibling already sure he's made the right move despite a horror week for his new club.
I've been at a few clubs now and you can really sense when you go to a bunch of guys and they're really close and they actually want to play for each other. And this club has a spirit, I can honestly say, that like none other I've been to.
Jared Mullen got to hand over the halfback spot personally to Luke Walsh today, but it's shaping to be at least a month before the Origin half will be back. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Fielding a very different team to the one that won the title from Illawarra last year, Newcastle has every reason to remain confident. However, that 58 points to 6 hiding last year is sure to haunt their hosts in tomorrow's decider.
I would think it would be their major motivation to turn the tables on us. We're after, as I said, 3 out of 3. They haven't won one for a while, and on their home ground you would expect them to be at their best.
Graham and his selectors weren't afraid to make changes for the match either, with James McCabe one of 2 players brought in, but there could be even further changes post-match. After 3 years in charge, Graham knows a win tomorrow would see out his tenure in the perfect way.
It would be a nice way to go out. If we can get 3 out of 3, might be time to move on and let a younger person jump into the breach.
And with Cessnock's Willie Palau back in the night sights for the rest of the season, he's playing for more than a country jumper tomorrow. He will miss the Gowanus clash against Nelson Bay, though, in the local competition, with the first match of round 11 tonight at Belmont. One more day on the tools before heading north. Kyle Garrett wants to carve out a name in the world of surf life saving and knows the Gold Coast is the place to do it.
Definitely to become one of the best. I mean, you don't do anything else half-hearted, so if I go up there I want to give it 100%.
On the back of solid results last summer, the 23-year-old was approached by the powerful and rich Northcliffe and Kurrawa clubs before settling for the latter as he eyes a life in the pro ranks.
Take every step as it comes. It's going to be a long journey. It might take me a year, it might take me 2.
Meanwhile, in local rugby union, Merriweather is looking for 8 straight wins this season against University tomorrow, while all NBN State Football League matches are on Sunday.
Greenpeace protesters today made no bones about why it set up camp this weekend at the edge of the proposed site for an open-cut coal mine.
And we're not just doing it for show, we actually want to stop this mine. We mean it and the locals mean it.
Centennial Coal wants to put the mine on this land near Muswellbrook, said to be the last patch of remnant woodland on the Hunter Valley floor. The move has outraged many locals who this weekend have joined the Camp Out community protest, including Graham Brown, who's worked in the coal industry for decades.
If you work in the industry, you see what it does to everything, not just the environment, to the community, to the workers, the whole lot. You can't help but to be against it. A new mine, an unnecessary mine.
Mira Wroblewski has come from the Central Coast to protest. She was today asking how, at a time when climate change is the hot topic, the state government could consider establishing another open-cut mine instead of phasing out coal-fired power.
It just doesn't make any sense to me to be mining for new coal rather than putting money and research into sustainable sources of energy like solar and wind power.
Environmental concerns remain paramount. The mine would use up to 11 megalitres of water per day, putting added stress on an already dwindling resource.
This is the line in the sand for the coal industry. It has to stop at Anvil Hill.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
Looking for 3 straight country championship wins, today's final couldn't have begun better for the defending champions, with Alex McCosker stealing Newcastle's first points. It was a lead short-lived, Illawarra's Matthew Reek getting the luck of the bounce to draw the home side level, before Ronald Prince gave Illawarra a 6-point buffer soon after. The signs got even worse, the home side able to carve up Newcastle through the middle. Right on half-time though, Joel Rawlins made it a 4-point game after he burnt Illawarra's defence with pure speed. The second half was all Illawarra though, as they made up for their thrashing in the corresponding match last year against Newcastle with a 42-20 win. Former Knight Justin Holbrook's try and a perfect day with the boot saw him finish with a personal tally of 18 for the match.
It looked more like a Sunday celebration than an electioneering exercise, but there was no doubt that Greg Combet was the man of the hour. With his family close by, Greg Combet had an eager audience, including local federal and state Labor MPs. Still in the process of moving his family from Melbourne to Lake Macquarie, the seat of Charlton is now his first priority.
We'll start the process for electing a new ACTU secretary to replace me, and that's a pretty important step that when that's concluded obviously allows me to be able to come up here and campaign full time.
And the sooner the better for Greg Combet, who admits he's got work to do.
I make sure that I'm out on the ground talking to people and finding out what the issues are that are concerning people in the area, and I know I've got a lot to learn in that regard.
Nikki Wilson-Smith, NBN News.
After injury wrecked his start to the season, Luke Walsh has taken some big steps in quick time. With the scars of last night's battle still fresh today, so too was a new contract at the club he never wanted to leave.
I'm happy in Newcastle, you know, with my family, my mates, you know, you couldn't ask for a better lifestyle.
The deal was agreed to just before kick-off, and while his first match was a real rollercoaster ride for the 20-year-old Glendale boy, he can't wait for more.
Unreal, it was unreal. It's still, you know, I had to keep a tear back.
What everyone is waiting to see is his partnership with Jaron Mullen renewed. The pair have played together since 12-year-olds and rose through the ranks of the club. Now they're considered the duo to lead the top-grade team.
He played one Premier League game last year where he only had to wink at me, you know, to put a kicker through and stuff like that. So we know each other's game, you know, easy.
One just can't wait to see them back together.
Paid off for him, all his hard work, and I think we've got a pretty dangerous combination when our left foot kicker in Jared comes back, and hopefully they get a bit of a combination together and kick us on.
First, there was the random breath test for alcohol. Now an encounter with police could see you asked to take a random drug test. A swoop by the unit conducting the state's newest roadside check on drivers in the Waratah Police Command resulted in 6 positive results from 60 tests. The 1 in 10 strike rate was an eye-opener for Hunter Police.
Yes, it is surprising in this Hunter area. It is disturbing as well that people are risking their life and other people's lives driving around drug affected.
The illicit substance test detects cannabis, the substances known as speed and ice, as well as ecstasy. Police say the testing regime is a case of you never know where and you never know when.
The drug bust does run an operation throughout the state every week, and they will be back in the Hunter area, I can guarantee that, but we don't know when they will be back.
With the June long weekend traffic operation Stay Alert commencing later this week, officers now say motorists are warned they could expect either roadside test for alcohol or drugs.
We're just asking all motorists, don't take drugs and drive. Apart from being illegal, it is also a very dangerous practice, similar to drink driving.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
They've wrecked a couple of walls there and tore the safe out of the floor, broken a few things and made quite a mess.
When it comes to sealing the deal, it was probably the most appropriate way to let the city know the revival of Fort Scratchley is set to begin. Senator Richard Colbeck, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Finance Minister, committing the Commonwealth to a $12 million restoration before the government relinquishes ownership of the site.
Officials in the department certainly have a commitment to the project as well, and I was really delighted when they came and said, look, we think we can make this work.
Just days before the 65th anniversary of the fort returning fire from Japanese submarines during World War II, the landmark is a shadow of its disciplined military heritage after attacks by vandals. But the focus is now on the fort's future.
When it's completed, it will become under the care and control and ownership of Newcastle Council. So we've got to make sure that it can generate enough income to maintain itself, and that's achievable, and that's what will get done.
And there's already huge interest in the site.
We've been down at the main gate. If we and turn people away. If we open that gate and come in prior to the contractors coming on site, we had people on site immediately.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
For many years, the focus has been on getting younger people to eat well, but it seems nutrition is even more vital in later life. A Hunter Medical Research Institute commissioned study conducted by the University of Newcastle has found that the older generation is fast succumbing to a tea and toast diet, which is ultimately putting their health at risk.
It's important when we're young, so we need to have good nutrition so that we build strong bones and, lots of brain cells and lots of things like that so that we can age well. It's important when we're older because we need it for our body functions, make sure our muscles are strong.
The study estimates that 15 to 60% of elderly people who go to hospital for unrelated treatment are malnourished.
So it is quite common for people who are malnourished to present themselves to John Hunter.
Alison says it's a long road back to recovery for people who become malnourished, a high-protein, high-energy diet and time the only solution. Professor Sandra Capra says diminished appetite and reduced finances prompt poor eating patterns among the elderly. They found a poor diet increases a person's risk of getting illnesses, including Alzheimer's, influenza and depression. She recommends the elderly eat foods which have more bang for their buck, in other words, less heavy or fatty fatty meals, but ones which are rich in essential nutrients.
Nourishing soups which are enriched with milk powders, for example, lots of vegetables.
While it sounds simple, nutritionists say healthy eating gets harder the older you get, especially for men.
Majority of us never learned to cook because in my era, Mum stopped at home and did the cooking.
But now he has a need to.
I could see that in the future I would be required because of my wife's health, and I took the opportunity to do the cooking for 1 to 2 and went along to it, and I found it very interesting. Not only improved my knowledge but my confidence in doing the cooking.
The course teaches men everything from what to cook to how to eat well and even what to put in the shopping trolley. And it seems there's been no complaints from Jack's wife.
If it wasn't all right, she'd have told me.
The course also teaches healthy alcohol consumption.
2 glasses of red wine of a night is a common one. Most doctors will recommend that for your heart.
A very small sherry, for example, or one small glass of wine.
More information on the study is available on the HMRI website. Christy Carter, NBN News.
They're proving the world of motocross isn't just a male domain. World champion Catherine Prum headlined a strong field of female racers, including the Hunter's own rising young star in Amy Boyd at the National Female Series event at Awabba. As expected, Prum dominated, winning both races and taking the round. Boyd was relegated to 3rd overall on her home track, which is famous for breeding one of the world's best in Chad Reed, who dropped in for a closer look himself. From 2 to 4 wheels, but not always on the road. Newcastle's Michael Guest had a rough and tumble weekend at the Australian Rally Championship round at Canberra. His trouble began on the opening night stage. Rolling his Ford Fiesta, somehow his crew got it looking from this back to this. As he made up for lost time, by yesterday's early stages, he was timing in the top 3 before more bad luck. A power steering failure ending his rally for good. Still, it could have been a whole lot worse when you consider this is what can happen. Both inside escaped unhurt, the Mitsubishi not so. Marvin Caruana will have to get used to this type of boot after suffering an ankle injury against the Roosters. The 4th player used at 5/8 so far this season. Even his possible replacements are getting nervous.
Yeah, the 6, I don't know, I might run out in another jersey because everyone that's played there seemed to fall over.
Ironically, Bailey finds himself in the mix after a 6-month recovery from major shoulder surgery. Returning at the weekend in Premier League, he's now on standby to step straight back into top-grade duties.
It's been a long time, and I thought it'd be a few games before I got a chance, but it sort of might come a little bit quicker, which would be good.
Riley Brown is another who'll be considered for the number 6, with the former number 7 giving both some tips today.
Yeah, well, I need to concentrate on my kicking game. I'm not really a natural kicker of the ball, so more work I do there, the better.
Fighting for a new deal, the utility player will most likely be handed the hooking role at the weekend in the absence of state skipper Danny Badiris, but he won't allow contract talk to become a distraction.
That's what I've got a manager for. He can do all that sort of work, and I'm just there to play football and have fun and enjoy what I'm doing.
Luke Walsh certainly is, as he begins life as the club's number 1 halfback and the job of emerging from one fair shadow.
Motorists may find it a bit difficult navigating through the Western Lake Macquarie suburb of Wakefield at the moment, with barely a road sign left standing. They were all flattened overnight in a swathe of destruction from Ryehope to Barnsley.
I'll tell you what, whatever they used, they must have damaged it, that's for sure, to knock all these signs down. There's mess everywhere, right through Wakefield Road, and unbelievable.
While the smaller signs may have been toppled by a single impact from a vehicle, some of the skid marks suggest that multiple rammings were needed to bring down the larger signs. Police have been called in to investigate, and it's thought that a stolen vehicle may have been used and then dumped. It's Steve Fraser's job to repair the damage. He estimates the bill could reach $20,000, and he says it's the worst case of sign damage he's seen.
They've certainly used something big, maybe a four-wheel drive or maybe a tank. Who knows?
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Standing in front of City Hall, it was obvious this battle is far from over. Busloads of outraged mums and dads united as one to voice their concerns over the future of council-owned childcare centres.
By their own admission, the centres are cost neutral, they're not costing anything to run, so why get rid of them?
According to the parents of Beresfield Community Childcare Centre, it's a wonderful, supportive learning environment, and it's clear to see it's loads of fun for the 59 children. But it's the cost that stands community childcare centres apart from the rest. Parents fear the focus may change to profit if council goes ahead with a proposal to find alternative service providers.
If you can't get childcare, how's a working mother supposed to return to work? Can't afford to pay for more expensive childcare. So taking these away is really not helping the community.
Council may soon review the operations of the 8 childcare centres and the Beresfield Golf Course, which it owns and operates, in an attempt to cut costs and raise revenue.
The childcare, family daycare and Beresfield Golf Course will not be changed next year. It's proposed simply to investigate alternative ways of providing those services.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The notion that you're never too young to make a difference was certainly ringing true at the Wetlands Centre. There, 500 kids showed incredible enthusiasm for activities that focus purely on environmental sustainability. They may be pint-sized, but their desire to learn about some very mature topics like climate change is a healthy sign for future generations.
Senior primary is a very good age to get these messages across. They're old enough to understand exactly what it means and take them home with them.
From using food scraps to build worm farms to learning the significance of native vegetation by creating mini bush gardens, the lessons were hands-on.
I learnt a bit about why we're making global warming and how to save energy. We want the world and the planet to be clean for the future and our children and yeah.
If all goes according to plan, these kids will already be sharing their new knowledge with family and friends.
Turn off the lights when you leave the room. Try and keep your showers under 5 minutes.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. Getting reacquainted with the more familiar waters of Port Stephens this afternoon, Sky Bertoli, Caitlin Frooke and Frank Future have just returned from the trip of a lifetime. United by a passion to halt Japan's plans to slaughter 50 whales in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary for scientific purposes, they delivered a petition bearing 40,000 signatures to the chairperson of the International Whaling Commission. And like all of the other protesters attending the Alaskan conference, they wanted to make a big noise about their campaign.
Our goal was in Alaska to get our meeting with Mr. Hogarth, the international chairperson, and we got it, and I think that it definitely made an impact on the world's media. We got so much out there, we made so much raised so much awareness, and I definitely think that was one of our biggest goals, so I think that we've achieved a lot over there.
Frank Future, who runs a whale-watching cruise business, says maintaining the migration of the mammals along Australia's coast is vital to the industry, which is worth $300 million a year in this country alone.
It's seen as one of the best conservation tools that groups like Greenpeace and I4 all acknowledge that the more people that come out and see the whales, the more they're likely to stand up for them.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
I think purple looks pretty good on me at the moment, so I'll certainly be doing my very best to continue the tradition that Melbourne Storm have been renowned for.
Steve Burriston is no stranger to the Newcastle Knights, having spent 9 years at the club as either a board member or coach. It's his business experience though, most recently his 12 years as Executive General Manager at Bradken Rail, which sealed the deal for the club's top job.
It's an exciting time. It's a time in my life where I think it's right. And, I have a lot of passion for this club and this town, so it's an exciting job for me. I'm pleased.
He expects to start in around 6 weeks. In on-field news, there will be co-captains for the side to play the Tigers in the absence of Origin players. Despite moving on at the season's end, Adam Woolnough will share the job with Kirk Reynoldson.
It's been a big couple of weeks for the club and personally for myself as well, and to be still thought of in that sort of vein, as you say, it's gives you a little smile.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying my footy at the moment and the sort of the responsibility that's brought onto my shoulders.
Chris Bailey will start at 5/8 against the Tigers and Riley Brown at hooker, but it'll be another week at least before Jared Mullen can return from that calf injury.
The likely thinking now is a Monday night game, which is the following week for us, which will be Canberra.
Dixon Park Surf Lifesaving Club isn't one of the bigger ones in the country. It isn't even the biggest in the Hunter. But through development and dedication, it has two of the strongest boat crews going around. On the strength of recent success, the club was invited to field a men's and women's crew in the prestigious Ocean Thunder Series next summer. The only catch is cash, more so a lack of it.
At the moment we're kind of in no man's land, but we're staying optimistic. We're training hard, hoping that someone will come along.
This is the series that they're aiming for. A high-intensity competition that's been purpose-built for gaining maximum exposure, not only in Australia, but worldwide.
I think the estimated viewer audience is around about 365 million worldwide, so it's going to be international.
We'd really like it that it was hunter businesses or the region that were sort of up on the front of the boat when we're sitting there posting good results.
Now together for 3 years, Dixon Park men's crew has been a dominant force at regional level and, like their female clubmates, remain focused on testing themselves against the best next summer. Having paid deposits to enter Ocean Thunder out of their own pockets, the search for a backer, along with winter training, continues.
We're lucky for the moment. Most of the boat work will be on the weekends, but give it another month and we'll be putting lights on the boat and rowing of an evening in the dark.
Now that is dedication. Jim Callanan, NBN News.